Hi, I'm Erin, and welcome to the Catalytic Leader Podcast. Over the last few years, I've had the opportunity to be a participant and learn under Jerry, Fred, and Michael as they've talked about some of these topics that we're going to be digging into in this podcast. Today, starting out, we are going to be talking about what a catalytic leader is. There's going to be some definitions, some words thrown around like abiders, equippers, and developers. We're going to look a little bit at our history as Church of God, but also a little bit of our hopes and dreaming for what is coming next and where we're headed. We're going to talk a little bit about reorienting ministry because the things that worked 20 years ago don't work today. So we're glad you're here to join us. Take a listen.
We're glad that you're joining us today. We're here to explore what it means to be a leader who's truly shaped for kingdom impact. My name is Jerry Davisson. I'm joined here with my friends and fellow co-laborers at Church of God Northwest, Michael Guzman and Fred Brown.
Downtown Freddie Brown.
Downtown Freddie Brown.
That's good.
All right. So, Fred, good to have you with us, Fred. So let's go and start with the big question. Why this podcast? Why do we think it's important to talk about leadership today in this day and age? And kind of how did we get here, really?
Yeah. That's good, Jerry. When I think about the formation of our team a couple of years ago, I remember you calling us a crack team, and I had to look that up and go, wait a minute, what is this? That sounds like drugs to me. To see that, we've got all of these different skills that come to the table, and our different strengths cover for each other's weaknesses. And so as we dove in together and started going the different directions that we're serving in, one of the common things that we were working on was working out like this new vision, values, and then deploying a new vehicle in a learning community. So we've learned a lot from starting 2 years ago, and we've really kind of gotten somewhere. So it feels like not do we just have a theory in mind, but we've got a little bit of data and stories and testimonies to be able to pull that help reinforce like, hey, why this is really needed for today.
Yeah, but we were also motivated to answer some questions for some of our younger and newer pastors because they were struggling and they were asking us to lean into their needs.
Yeah, that's really good. And no drugs were used in the putting together of this team. So I just want to make that
clear. Yeah, this is a holiness movement.
Clear. That's right. This is. We are holiness people. Yeah, definitely. Our we're in different times, right? Yeah. We're in some strange days. It's not your father or your grandfather's culture anymore. There's been some huge shifts that have gone on. Yeah. And there are a lot of us who are wondering what the church has to offer, what leadership looks like in the church these days. And so, we hope to kind of think about and answer some of those questions as well.
Let me just even riff off of something that you're putting out there too. What I've noticed is that like there are a couple of responses that churches and church leaders tend to take in that kind of world that you're describing that is radically different. I think when it's disorienting or confusing, we may double down on our theology and try to get it more and more rigid and confined because it feels safe to be able to have that. And again, I love theology. I love the scriptures. But it almost feels like we lean into that when it feels chaotic around us. Or I've watched too, people adjust their like end times theology to be able to fit like, why does the world seem to not be working the way that I had expected to? Or you watch churches like just go insular and turn inside because like the world is scary and I don't know what to do. And so I think that lays the groundwork for like the landscape around us has radically changed. And it's going to require, like you're saying, a different leader than maybe we've produced over the generations. And so that's where that catalytic leader language comes from.
Yeah. And I think that leader also helps readjust culture. I understand reshaping our theology, but many people are protective of their culture. And depending on the generation that they come from, they like certain structure. Whereas a younger generation has always been known to question the older generation.
You mean like old guys like you, Fred? You like your structure. You like,
Me, I could, but here's the thing. The people who were young at one time are now middle-aged or old.
Yeah.
And they're being held in check by a younger generation. So there's a lot of people that are uprooted as far as culture. Do we wear suits and ties on Sunday? Is there pomp and circumstance, how the service begins? Why is that pastor wearing skinny jeans with a hole in the knee, and a baseball cap on and combat boots? I mean, that's not what a pastor's supposed to look like.
Sounds good. So part of the conversation around catalytic leaders had to do with when Mike, I brought you on staff with us. So, one of the assignments we gave you was to redo the website, and that started a whole conversation with not only our team but also the council. We brought in some other voices to see what is our vision, what is our values, and I think that kind of frames the whole direction of where we went with the catalytic leader. So maybe Fred, Mike, you can talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I remember, asking about the website and saying, hey, is this language that's on the website in cement, or is this stuff that's malleable and changeable? And so we walked through really kind of like a process of discernment, like, well, what would a vision and a set of values be for this current day and age? And what I did is, in kind of for me being relatively new to the association, I went back and dug into our history. And so I got the book Truth Along the Trail by Sam Dunbar. And that really outlined our history. And I realized, oh my goodness, we have been doing ministry, pioneering, like risk-taking ministry in this association for a really long time. And then that kind of, as I read through that, you could see where there are different responses, really early pioneering work, and then eventually there would be some development, as like churches had been grown and multiplying. Then you had people like Paula Wilson's dad, who came along and built churches and, lent his leadership to establishing the buildings themselves. And so you saw this pioneering and developing work that, worked in ebbs and flows. And so, a lot of that language started to come from that. And so that began to be, what we said, okay, our vision is that we want to be pioneering and developing a Jesus-shaped landscape on the West Coast. We say it differently depending upon maybe the group of people that we're talking about, so that we're not just taking over regional territories, but we've got a lot of partnerships on the West Coast and friends in other regions and associations. And so that is largely the geographic region, and then the work, the pioneering, developing that we want to see and do.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lorenzo Peterson, affectionately called Pastor Zoe. And this episode is sponsored by Warner Pacific University, founded by the Church of God in 1937. We are raising students to have Christ-centered leadership and service. And our motto here comes from Jeremiah 29:11. Of course, that talks about purpose. And our own logo, WP, stands for with purpose. And listen, we are igniting a flame of purpose that can never be extinguished in our students. And we are very excited about that. And we are inviting you pastors and community leaders to re-engage with Warner Pacific University as we continue to raise up leaders to go out and do God's bidding in the kingdom. We are shaped by this movement's values. Our shared story, 90 years strong, is simply this, from the old hymn: because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know who holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. For more information about what God is doing at his university, you can go to our website, warnerpacific.edu.
Yeah, as a movement as a whole, we say Jesus is the subject.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What does that look like? We want to talk about, okay, if Jesus is the subject, is he our true North Star?
Yep.
Is that where we're all headed for? And then if that's true, what are his practices that form us? And finally, are we really proclaiming the gospel and his kingdom in word and deed? Because, I go back to when Church of God in the 70s, there was this weird thing going on where people were more about their image than their faith. And leaders were constantly trying to please the people in the pew instead of leading the people in the pews. And so the leadership has to change now because the people in the pews are looking for truth. Plus, we had a whole generation of kids come through from the 70s to now who deconstructed everything they believed because that's what they were taught. But deconstruction led them nowhere.
Yeah.
It didn't offer any answers.
Yeah, we were having that conversation ahead of time about a recent podcast and the movement from modernism to postmodernism, even language that's now being used, meta-modernism. And yeah, it's like the nihilism that, like the nothingness that surfaced through all that postmodern, deconstruction. Has created a world that has been very hopeless. And I think the church has felt that and has gone, what do we do? And the world's just really, really fallen apart. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of hope that we have because Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. We do actually have a strong foundation that we're standing on, but we need to articulate it for this day.
I think as leaders, we have to kind of reorient ourselves because we've tried everything from church growth seminars to small group movements to you name it. We even went out and started little house churches and all these different programs that were supposed to take us somewhere, but they all end up in the same place, nowhere.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the truth is, deconstruction is not always all that bad.
Right.
I mean, you can deconstruct. And I think there's some deconstruction that's necessary, right? Some of the old methods, some of the old models, some of the old ways of doing and thinking, we're not bad, but we're in a different time, we're in a different season, and so as long as that deconstruction leads us to somewhere, and what we were thinking about is it needs to lead us to Jesus. I mean, ultimately, we are called to be disciples, apprentices of Jesus, and He is our hope, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's where our hope lies, and so I think it's important for us to think about that as well. So as we thought about that, pioneering, developing a Jesus-shaped landscape. I mean, we wanted Jesus to be the subject, as Fred said, in our movement, kind of share that language with Church of God Ministries. We started to think, okay, so we have these younger pastors who are asking us to lean into some questions they're having surrounding church and church structure. And so we decided we're going to hang out at my house for a little while, right? And we were going to kind of figure out maybe how we could, again, to use Fred's word, how can we lean into these pastors and deal with some of the questions? And we came up with this hypothesis. So what does hypothesis look like?
What we're attempting to do is to put new wine in old wineskins at the same time as putting new wine into new wineskins.
Or in the Church of God, we put new grape juice.
Oh yeah,
come on,
Well, yeah, come on,
Fred. Come on,
holiness. That's right.
Be healed.
That's holiness. That's another podcast. How do you work out your holiness? Anyway, go ahead, Fred.
But your question, the hypothesis behind that.
Yeah. So, Michael, what was that hypothesis?
Yeah. So
walk us through that.
I mean, I think another layer to that is that we recognize that the three of us hadn't been on team before, so that we knew that there was a newness to that. We all brought different strengths and even different language to the table. So we didn't have like one set of language to be able to build from. And so we wanted space for that to work out where we could each fully be ourselves and bring all of that to the table. And so what we decided that time frame is that, like, if we come together in common vehicles, so some way to be able to gather not just the three of us but other leaders with common practices and common input, like teaching input, conversations, things like that, and practices involved, then through that use of a lot of common language, then we could gain some collegiality because we notice the absence of it on kind of the other side of the arc of, development that our universities and institutions have gone through, that we need some place for collegiality to be birthed, that we would gain some synergy from that, and then that would produce some level of breakthrough. And breakthrough, though that's a really positive thing, we used some, general language. That breakthrough is going to come by the kingdom coming, leaders being more aware of who they are and their specific calling. And we just felt like that would then empower us for change. So that was the basic hypothesis that we built this learning community around and said, I think we could try this out.
And of course,
So,
and of course, Michael put it all on a whiteboard for us, and
Of course, yeah.
drew it out. And
whiteboard Mike.
yeah, Fred talks a lot about Warner Pacific University is at one point, at least in his era, long time ago, was kind of the common language, the common vehicle that brought specifically on Oregon, Southwest Washington brought the conversation together, and we're finding that's not happening anymore. So we needed some way to develop some collegiality, some common language, and our hypothesis.
Yeah, and just for poking fun at it, we're all different vehicles. Michael's the F-150 pickup truck. I'm the Acura SUV, and Jerry's the Buick.
That's right.
That's hilarious.
Fiery red. Yeah, that's right.
But if we were going to have a common district vehicle, would it really be a Toyota?
Oh, no.
It'd be a one accord, right? They were in one accord. Oh, that's lame. We got to access.
That's good. Well, I'm thinking too, Jerry, about with the hypothesis now. I remember when we were there at your house, and it was all just dreaming and possibility, which I love playing in that space. But now we're a couple of years in, and we actually have some good data. We have some good results. We've gone through multiple immersions and we have 2 learning communities in formation. And we've seen that it wasn't just something cooked up in our ideas and in our hearts that we hoped for. We've actually watched it spread, and we've been able to see we do have collegiality, albeit on a relatively small scale, but still we've got it. We've got this sense of synergy, and we've got, stories of breakthrough. And I'm hoping that through this podcast, we can begin to even talk about some of those things so that it could empower even more change for the future.
This episode is sponsored by Servant Solutions, serving those who serve since 1949. Born from the Church of God's vision to care for ministers and their families, Servant Solutions has grown from a simple pension board into a trusted partner for retirement planning, financial education, and holistic support for church staff. We remain dedicated to empowering those in ministry with wise planning and stewardship tools for every season. Learn how Servant Solutions can help you plan faithfully and care well for those you serve. Visit servantsolutions.org to find out more.
Yeah, the miracle of how this even came about is amazing. I mean, 3 guys show up one day. And to be honest, our discussion was, boy, it would be nice if we could do something like this. And we walked away from there saying, this was our dream someday. Well,
right.
Because of our different gift sets, our dream rapidly came together and was confirmed by requests from our younger pastors. And so it's almost, I don't like to use the phrase, it's a God thing. That diminishes, but it was a move of God's Spirit.
It really was.
And I think that led us to where we are now. And now we have to define, or we were able to define what we thought was a catalytic leader.
Let's jump into that.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So we had our vision, we had our values. We talked about, abiders, equippers, mission. So what is a catalytic leader? What do we hope to not develop, but what kind of people and leaders do we want to have come out of the other end of these immersions or our conversations?
Yeah. Take that one.
I like your definition.
Yeah, so we really built it around another tool. So it's like a tool built on another tool, just the Jesus-shaped life. So we just real quick, at that is that Jesus lived into these 3 different dimensions: up with the Father, in with the disciples, and out to the world. And he lived in a really beautiful balance. And so out of that balanced Jesus-shaped life, we talked about, what would a leader in today's day and age look like? And so in the up dimension, we talked about how they would need to be an abider, somebody who knows how to abide in, rest in Christ, going back to Fred's image-based era, not trying to find an identity from how I look, how I preach, how I sound, but from my sonship in Jesus. And that everything flows from there. Again, John 15, I know in my life in ministry, it feels like I've been trying to prove Jesus' words wrong. Apart from me, you can do nothing. But abiders really are like the Father loves to bring fruit, but it's from the actual abiding and remaining in Christ. And then in the in dimension, with the disciples, we know that leaders have to be equippers. There have been so much pressure on the modern pastor, today's pastor, to be everything in the church. Whether that's CEO visionary or that's mowing the yard. I just want a church where, the pastor still mows the yard.
And
So there's
janitor,
so
yeah,
much.
he's got to clean the church too. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, but we know Ephesians 4 tells us that, we're not that we singular are even called to be equippers, but that like everybody has a call to equip other people so that the body grows up in maturity. And so, a catalytic leader would need to be somebody who could do that, equip other people for their calling and their ministry. And then the last part is in the out dimension, to the world, we know that because the world has changed so much around us, it used to be that we mobilized resources and people to go to foreign countries to do mission work. And that's what, missionary work was and is. There's great value to it at the same time frame, but because the world has changed around us, we don't necessarily live in a Christian culture in this day and age. We've actually got to learn how to be missionaries here in the cities that we're planted in. That's a very different mindset. And so the catalytic leader tool is abiders, equippers, and missionaries. Then that's the kind of leader we think is going to make a difference.
The cool thing is my least favorite subject in high school was geometry. What you just described is an equilateral triangle.
Yeah.
Man, you just throw out that language.
Yeah, but it's really what it is, because, when you say up and leaning in, but if you made it into a triangle shape, they would really understand where in comes in, then out, and then back to up, because those outsiders were leading them up.
Yeah.
And it's a continuum, not just a one-time shot, but what it really impacts for the person sitting in the pew is, I got to get off my duff and do something.
But not just the paid staff.
I can't expect Superman to pop out from the pulpit and do everything.
Hey, I love the way Michael puts it. Is everybody gets a chance to play, right?
Yeah.
We all get we're all called, right?
I know.
To be catalytic leaders. So, yeah.
It is funny, though, when you preach that message to local congregations, sometimes the people who are used to sitting in the pews and understand the social contract I show up, you preach, I tithe, I support you or whatever. When you say, hey, you have a calling, and it's either you find this like awakening excitement happen, or you'd be like, that's not what I signed up for. So it is interesting, though it's in the scriptures, like there is both excitement and pushback at the same time frame from different people in the congregation.
So because we're talking about catalytic leaders, that means on multiple levels, but from the pastoral level, a person who can develop leaders, not only that, but can pioneer and develop leaders in a Jesus-shaped lifestyle, that takes a whole different calling. Because, we can get stuck in academics. All we want to do is teach. And what we've seen is a church that's had a pastor who's a very strong academic teacher type tend to attract those type of people, and that's what's sitting in the pews. Yeah. And they really don't go out and impact the world around them. To be catalytic means something's got to change, so that there's evangelists coming out of that church, there's prophets coming out of that church, all those different things.
Yeah, in our immersions, one of the things that we've talked about a lot, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this on future episodes, but we talk about fivefold ministry. Ephesians 4, some to be apostles, some to be prophets, some to be evangelists, teachers, pastors, to equip the saints for ministry. And I think a lot of times we've called on our pastors to be all of those things. But the beautiful thing about God, the way he shapes the body, is that there are pastors, apostles, teachers. They're not on paid staff, but they're in the body to do the work of ministry. And so, as we talk about that and we start opening that up to, our pastors, our leaders, and see the light bulbs go on in their hearts and their lives, and say, oh, this is why I struggle with this, or, whatever they talk about. It's been a life change. It's been awesome.
Yeah. It's been really fun.
I think the comical moment for me was a couple of retreats ago with our second round of pastors, when they started talking about their gift sets and where they were. One of our pastors said, I now know what I need to do. He flipped up a chart. Hire me some evangelists.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
Because he was a teaching guy, but not that was so hilarious.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah. So we've kind of talked about this, this hypothesis, right? If we do these things, this will be the result. Our desire is to see and be producers of catalytic leaders, not only us, but to release catalytic leaders in our churches to make a difference. So what's next? What are we going to see on some future episodes? Because the truth of the matter is we're on this journey, man. We are learners. We're just following the lead of the Holy Spirit and enjoying the ride. But as we think about this, think through this, talk about this, what can our audience, that one person, my mom who watches, what can no, just kidding. What can they expect from us?
Well, one thing we need to make clear to everyone is we're not talking about adding a new program to the church, because that's what everybody's used to is a program. Do these 9 things. And we're talking about a change of lifestyle, not only for the church, but for the leaders and the congregants.
That's so good, Fred.
And it's going to be work because I don't know about you, but at a certain point in life, you learn, I need to lose some weight.
Why did I laugh? I don't know.
And until you really have to do it, and then all of a sudden, it doesn't just come off overnight, especially when you're past 40. So there's a deliberate change of diet, a deliberate change of routine, a deliberate change of relationships, viewpoint, everything. Well, it's the same thing in the church. If we're going to develop and have catalytic leaders that move, that abide in Christ, that do all the things that we're talking about, the up, in, and out, there's a change of mentality, spirituality, physicality, and all those 4 areas of our human nature. All of that's going to change. Then we can get where we're going.
You mean we're not the gurus that's going to dispense all the,
Not at all.
The information out? My mom just left. She just checked out the podcast.
Well, we go back to the 60s and the radio preachers. You can buy right now.
Michael,
well, I think too, to add and to, I think it's just add to what Fred's saying there, the change of doing things, that actually is a really difficult thing to do. I love the way that you brought up, like losing weight. It requires a whole bunch more. What's nice though is that we're not just saying, hey, go lose weight and take care of it. We're providing common practices and a community. So what I love is that not only are we saying, hey, here's a massive challenge to take on, but we're providing loads of invitation and saying, hey, we'll walk with you through this. And then when we've got it's not just us again, but we've got a group of people that are in this with you. And so we're watching sincerity, authenticity, friendship, laughter, all of those things that are very human and people being made in the image of God that are just so enjoyable along the way. And so I love it that massive amounts of challenge, but loads of invitation are matched together in there. And so I think you're going to get to both see inside of the catalytic leader tool and some of the other things we're talking about, but you're going to get to hear stories of people who are finding a lot of refreshment from relationship. And we've always been a relational movement, but I think because of the changes of our culture and the changes and the patterns of our vehicles that we've used in the past, we can't just double down on what we've done before. And so I think this is providing us the context for that relationship development.
And that's where, Jerry, you talked about deconstruction. That's where it comes in, because old habits have to be deconstructed. First identified, then dealt with. But that doesn't mean that's the end of it. They have to be replaced with something. And new habits, much as we all hate to admit it, our doctor tells us drink more water. Have you tried drinking 64 ounces in one day?
It's really hard. Yeah. You're going to be peeing a lot.
Yep, here we go. I'm drinking my water. But it is hard. It is hard for sure. I think it was interesting because we went into these learning communities with this hypothesis with fear and trembling, right? And what we wanted to see come out of it was relationship, collegiality, synergy. And man, I think, sure we've had some common inputs, we've done some common practices, we've done some things, but I think the goal that has come out of these immersions have been just the relationships that have been built.
Really is. That's the goal.
People are understanding they're not alone anymore. There are other people who are struggling with the same things. They're thinking through the same things. So yeah, we're going to pack this a lot more in future episodes. This is just kind of taste of kind of where we've been, the start of all of this. Yeah. And, we just look forward to talking a little bit more.
Good stuff, guys. Thanks everybody for listening.
Hey, come west, young man. Come west, young woman. If you're sensing a call to join the work of pioneering and developing a Jesus-shaped landscape in the Northwest, we want to hear from you. Whether you're a pastor, a leader, a church planter, simply curious about how God might use you here, take the step. Visit chognorthwest.org/come west and fill out the form there. Let's dream together about what God can do through you in the Northwest. That's chognorthwest.org/come west. Come west.